Welcome to day number 43 of ZenMadman's Nutty Pot Limit Omaha journey. I have King 10-7-4, which is like every other three cards. There's two gaps between every pair of cards. I'm double suited, which is cool. Suited to the king and the 10. This is the best variety of this hand, but it's still not very good, and I definitely don't want to play it multi-way. If it were to be a heads-up situation, this feels a little closer. I'm still going to fold, and I am curious to check this hand after. I think there's a reasonable chance that I can call that, but it's just the connectivity just felt like it wasn't there, and so I do think a fold is correct, but that's the sort of hand that I think I get to play hands more like that one heads up than multi-way. Having said that, I think that was probably still a little too weak against a low jack raise. Other factor was there was a poster, so the raise was a little bit larger than usual. My pot odds were still the same, but ostensibly they should be using a slightly tighter range to make that raise size, I think. However, I'm not super confident in that thing that I think. So, we shall see. We have marked it. And hopefully we'll get some interesting post-flop spots as well. This one isn't going to lead to any post-flop spots. Getting a lot of multi-double gappers. Double-double gappers, triple-double gappers. Double-double and a triple gapper. That's what this is. Yeah, I don't know. You got to make your own fun, right? Poker often can be like boring, right? You have to sit there and fold a lot of hands, and then the flops come out, and often you have to fold a lot of flops, or sometimes you finally, you get some good hands and you bet and everybody folds, and finding a way to kind of work through that boredom. Here, I just amuse myself by talking to you all, but at a poker table, we can pay attention to the action. The button raised and the small blind cold called, big blind came along. They've been kind of, they've been loose passive. They called one hand instead of raising so far. Full pot bet from the small blind cold caller. That would suggest to me probably a queen, maybe 3-3. They could have like clubs with something like, I don't even know, some pocket pair with clubs or some stuff that's kind of blocking queen X. Odd that this player called the $10 basically and then folded for 16. That doesn't seem optimal. That feels like it's not great. 7 single suited with an ace feels like a hand that I want to play, except that the deuce I think is just too bad. If the deuce were a 3 or a 4, it would connect to the 7 and the ace, or a 5. And a bigger card would certainly be nice. But this is another hand that we will tag for pre-flop, and then we'll pay attention to what's going on right now. The button has raised. The small blind has 3-bet, and they're just going to get it in a lot of the time. The button might fold, but interesting that they called. They must have like some very speculative hand that's just like, okay, there are some flops I'm going to fold. Not a lot of flops are going to fold. And they flop a straight draw and a pair, and have 55% equity on the flop with that hand against the overpair, right? Overpairs don't do so hot on straight boards. If somebody has a pair and a gutter even, that's going to be a favorite there. Because all of the unmatched cards also, as long as their kickers aren't like covered by the person with the overpair, then they're not gonna, they're gonna have a lot of equity. Because they can make a straight, they can make trips, they can make 2-pair. Looks like the player behind us raised and then got a cold call, right? If it were a call and then a raise, there would probably be 9, 10, like closer to $10 in the middle. Getting used to what the pot sizes are after a particular action is very helpful, because then we can kind of sort of reverse engineer what happens pre-flop, right? If you get used to seeing 808 and it's like, oh, that's a raise, a cold call, and then the blinds fold. Then you could be like, oh, what happened this hand? Was I the big blind? Was it because, one tabling, that shouldn't be too much of an issue. But when multi-tabling, sometimes, you might raise one hand and then look away and have an important decision on something. Your mind, you want to focus totally on that other thing. You come back to the first thing, and there are HUDs. I think there are options for having things displayed that's the previous action in the hand, but you should generally be able to figure out what happened based on the pot size, at least on the flop. Right? You should at least be able to figure out pre-flop. Like here we can tell, oh, one person called, everybody else folded. And I must be the big blind, because why else would I see a flop with this hand? I fold. All right, and this I will fold as well. And I will enter my traditional good morning chat into the chat. I've already said good morning on the audio track, but I think getting the chat moving is it's a good thing to do. All right, just get it going, get it primed. All right, the cutoff is giving some deep thought to this. We've got a couple of big stacks here. Right, the player number 3, 2 to the left is they've doubled up and they've been playing somewhat loose. The player who just timed out, I guess. I think maybe I raise this. I'm suited to a king. I have king queen, which connect well. I have 6-4, which connect well. It's like kind of two separate hold'em hands, which is not the best. And this is the sort of hand that if I am raising, I'm going to be folding to a 3-bet. Not a lot of hands I'm going to raise fold. Well, there are a fair amount, actually. I take that back. All right, I'm going to mark that hand and double check that. That might be a little too loose. I think king, queen, 5-4 single suited is definitely going to be a raise. King, queen, 6-4 is maybe a little bit dicey, but we'll find out. Oh, this thing still says day 42? Yeah, okay. Day 43, right? Yeah, okay. So I changed the top of the video, but I didn't change the stream title. Amateur. All right, I gotta work on those things. Set up a, what is it? Ooh, do I have a pen? I don't have a pen. I had a pen somewhere here. Ah, there is a pen. Hold on. Yeah, pen. Cool. I shall write down pre-stream checklist. Okay. Rainbow, I'm not so sure. I do have 3 Broadway cards. I have Ace King, which is nice. It blocks a lot of stuff. The 3 connects to the ace. I'm going to fold and double check this hand for sure. A lot of pre-flop uncertainties today. So what's that about? I mean, I've been working a lot on my pre-flop game in general. I actually think that this is not a hand that I play against a raise. On the button, this is the sort of hand that is makes a good cold call, these single-suited rundowns. However, in the small blind, I don't think so. So that then begs the question. Oh, no, that's not what I meant to do. I min raise. I could have put in like the regular raise is what I meant to do. But for some reason, when somebody posts and then there's like a small blind, they do this weird thing where they just don't have a pot button, which you can't see because I've actually edited that out. But you can take my word for it. Trust me. There's no pot button. I don't know why. It's a glitch. It's a glitch in not the matrix. All right, I'm gonna check. This is decent for my min raising range, I guess. But I'm gonna have some wraps. I'm gonna have top set, middle set, not a lot of bottom set. Here, everybody checks. Ace, I could have checked on the flop. 4x is going to be in these people's range a lot because I misclick min raised. So if I put in the full raise, I think there'd be a lot fewer combinations that have a 4 in them. However, they can kind of call with like any 4, almost any 4 that seem like they have something. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of folding going on. So I think, they can easily have a 4, they can have a king, and all I had was a gut shot to the not nut straight. So, and a pair of jacks. But I mean, in terms of potential to improve, I guess I could have made trip jacks. So I had like 6 outs to not very good hands. All right. Got a short stack on the right. I've been looking at some of the things in the matrix about how we do, how we deal with short stacks, and it's fairly different. We definitely play a lot fewer hands, and I think there's less raise folding. I have to verify that assertion, but there's a lot less raising, right? Because a lot of hands when we raise, I think the main thing that happens in theory is everybody behind us folds, and then the blinds maybe call, right? One of the blinds calls, like the big blind. So our hand heads up in position against the big blind. If we're at 100 blind stacks, if our hand has playability, and then we can leverage our position with the deeper stacks, right? However, they might be able to 3-bet more out of position at shorter stacks, and even if they just call, we're going to have a much lower SPR. Like picture this person, right? Let's say I raised this hand, which I wouldn't do regardless, but I should probably tighten my raising range when this person's in the big blind. That's my theory, because what happens is if I get called, I make it 350, they call 350. Now they've got about 23 in their stack-ish, right? But there's 7 whatever in the middle, so they've basically got a 3-to-1 SPR. So if they check and I bet, they can pretty much just get it in on the flop. I'm not going to be able to bet flop, bet turn, bet river with significant bet sizes. All right, here I have 1 blocker to the spade. I have no pair. I have a very strong nut low draw, so if I were playing high low, that would be pretty cool. But now I have a gut shot to Broadway, and now I have a blocker to the low straight. And I basically just have nothing. My opponent probably has nothing, so I'm kind of tempted to just like, it would be reasonable to maybe just throw a bet out here. Just like, look, you don't have nothing. Let's just give me the pot. And now they're going to think a really long time and then bet $1. No, they're either going to bet pot or they're going to check, I think. They're either trying to decide whether they can bet their 5-5 flush, their pair of kings. Okay, so like maybe I can get them to fold kings on the river, right? So maybe that's a missed opportunity, or I'm thinking too much about my hand and the fact that I just don't have anything. And I do have 1 spade blocker. That's not like super big deal, but it's kind of nice. I'm definitely going to play this. The question is, how much do I actually gain from raising? And I think the answer is not that much. Especially if that's going to be the flop. So I flop bottom pair. I have runner, terrible straight draw. There's, and what am I blocking? I'm blocking bottom pair, and like top and bottom 2. So this is not a hand that I can make a runner boat. Basically, that's what I'm looking at here. I need a 9 and then a 5, 6, or 7. I can make runner quads too. That's the real goal, is to catch 2 more 9s. But we're not gonna stick around for that. We're just gonna fold there. I do think pre-flop is somewhat of an interesting spot, just in terms of over limping versus raising the small blind in spots like this. This rainbow, I'm going to fold. If I had a suit, I think I'm going to cold call this, and I will check that assertion. Like, I think it's important to be able to learn from hands that we don't play as well, right? Like, my question isn't really, do I cold call this in rainbow on the button versus a hijack RFI? Like, I don't think I do. I'm reasonably confident that this fold is correct, right? But I do want to think like, okay, what if I'm single suited? What if I'm double suited? I think if I'm single suited, this is exactly a cold calling hand. And because that thought came to me, I want to double check it, right? I want to be like, okay, is this right? Because every time that the thought comes up, if I give it a little, if I'm like, okay, was that right? Yes, no. The sooner that I can kind of verify something that I think, the more I can, drill it in. Right, and if I'm wrong, then I want to I want to correct that as soon as possible. So I think there's value there. 10s with a king, suited with a king. I think I actually can open this from, I'm sure I can open this from the button. The 4 is a really gross card because it's another diamond. And I think hands like this, if the 4 connected, I think I could call, but I don't think I can call a 3-bet here. And one thing that made me a little hesitant about this hand was I was looking at this player behind me and saw that they were fairly aggressive. And yeah, this is not very good. And so, but I didn't want to put too much stock in their numbers, right? It was an 18 hand sample. Now it's 19 hands. And this 3-bet is going to be like 2 or 3 instances. Yeah, so they've 3-bet 2 out of 7, right? They had 3-bet 1 out of 6. So that's not really something I want to draw big conclusions from. So I didn't. So I raised, and then I got 3-bet. And now I still don't want to draw big conclusions. But now it's like a little more likely, okay, that person clearly knows where the pot button is for 3-betting. And as a result, I'm going to be a little more cautious with my raises. This table is like one of the worst that I've played on stream. I think one of the worst on Ignition. Like, yeah, we've got a player who's playing, kind of a little loosey-goosey, and then on the right we've got this short stacker who doesn't seem to be playing many hands at all. Across from us, we don't have any real information. On our left, they've been kind of aggro so far, but they might just be a fairly solid player running slightly hot. They certainly haven't been way out of line so far from what I've seen. And then the player with the 300, it feels like they are maybe a solid player who just won a couple buy-ins and is kind of locking it down and is just waiting to see if they can pick up something and stack the person with 200. That's kind of my feeling. So we'll see. Sooner or later, someone's going to bust though, and we'll get a new player. These games don't usually stay bad, but which isn't to say there's like a bad game, right? But you have to understand relative to the stakes, relative to the environment, where a game kind of lies along the spectrum of like games in this, on these stakes on this site. All right, so we have full pot bet on the turn by the player on our right. They're repping the straight, I'd say. They can have some kind of a draw. They could have maybe 2 pair and a 5. They probably shouldn't have been betting there without a 5. Now they're half potting, which to me feels like maybe they still have the straight, or maybe they have a boat here and they don't have the straight. It's kind of like if you have a boat and you get there, where are you trying to get value from? Because since you didn't get raised on the turn, you're not that likely to be up against a straight. I guess the caller could have a hand like 5 deuce. And they did make a boat. They bet the turn full pot with top set on that 3. It had been, what was it, a limped pot? Let's see what everybody had. I'm going to go take a look, and I will report back. Ace, King, 7, 6. Okay, I have a suited ace. The 7 and 6 are pretty decent cards. What did people have? Somebody had a 5. What? Okay, we'll look at that later. This might be a good squeezing hand. I think I want to be double suited to squeeze, though. And I'm not certain about flatting, but I do have connectivity. I have a couple big cards, and I have a nut flush draw. Now I have a second nut flush draw blocker. I have backdoor nut spades, and I have top pair, top kicker. 4 ways. I'm not super excited about this hand, but if it checks around and I get a free card, I'll be in pretty decent shape. There are some, let's think about what kind of turn cards do I want to see. Well, if there's not a lot of action, then a king's pretty good. An ace is not going to be great. A 5 or a spade would be certainly, particularly a 5 of spades. Now, I'm blocking some, flushy things. I'm not really blocking too much in the way of straight draws. I'm blocking the, the big wrap. I'm just going to fold top pair. I'm out of position. And while there are some good turn cards, they're more like runner turn cards, right? So calling a 3/4 pot bet doesn't seem particularly wise to me. The previous hand, one player had a 6. So they made trips on the river, and the other player had a 6, and they made trips on the river, and the one player had the not set of 9s. So it looks like the other players were drawing not almost dead. One had like a straight draw, and one had a flush draw. So it was funny. The one person bet their set, right? They bet with a set on the turn, and they got two people who each had a draw, and then they each had the same pair, which then made trips. So they both made trips, so they had like the best hands to pay off with. All right, double suited Queen Jack 9-8. I think I can 3-bet this hand. I think it plays very well as a 3-bet. I'm not certain. One thing that I'm concerned about is if I cold call the big blind 3-betting, which would be kind of annoying. Here, if I flop anything good, I'm basically just going to get stacks in because we're going to have an SPR of like 2-1 or, All right, so now this person jams. Do I want to try and get heads up or do I want the other player in? I really don't know. I think I have to get there, but calling feels so weird. We just jam. I'm not sure about this spot. This is a very, very questionable spot, and I'm super crushed pre and post and everything. All right, so we'll top off. And so that's a spot where like maybe I did want the other player in, right? But if the button had just a hand like ace high, if they had something weird, then maybe I don't want to allow the other player to continue, and then like I can make one pair and win. We'll mark that for pre-flop, and we'll come back to it after the session. Oh, too late, right? No. Oh well. I wanted to see what my equity is, but we'll check that later. And I think I actually had pretty decent equity, right? With the rundown, it's probably close to 50%, like 40 something. And with the $15 contribution from the other player, I think I only need like, I mean, not 42 to call, but to be from the beginning of the hand. That was an interesting hand where we had the player flatting on the button against a raise. And you are supposed to flat some aces there. Those might have been a little bit on the strong side for doing that, but, you know, it certainly worked out as well as it possibly could. So we'll take a look at that, both from my side of the hand and from their side of the hand. And I don't think folding was an option, really. I think the question was just whether I wanted to, you know, rejam and kind of possibly shut the other player out or just call. That would have been the same result, basically. All right, so, you know, the board pairs, they bet 665. Does that mean they have 6-5 and they're hitting the 6-6-5? We'll never know because I'm not going to look that one up tomorrow. I have been looking up hands recently. There was one where I folded... the last two hands, I think that there was one 2 days ago, I guess, where I folded top pair, top kicker after flatting a hand like ace, king, jack, 9, high jack versus low jack or something like that. I think I was double suited. So I was thinking, oh, I could 3-bet or I could call, and I called, and the flop came king high. So I had top pair, top kicker, and like some backdoor stuff, but they just came out and like potted it or something. And I just folded, and I looked it up and they had king, king. So, you know, when you're blocking top set, they can still have top set. Unless you have top set, and then you're totally blocking it. But yeah, and then the previous hand that I looked up was that one where I folded for like $5 on the river in like a $200 pot when I had the wrap and the nut flush draw, but I had like ace 5 high on the river. And they also had a set of kings, which was also top set. So both times. So basically the you know, the moral of the story is people just always have top set, and that's just how it goes. So we can expect to see more top set in the future. All right, we're waiting for this person. All right, and then the short stacker basically gets the double up and leaves. Not shocking. That's kind of a strategy. It's a thing people do. And if anybody has any opinions about any of the hands, as always, sound off in the chat or in the comments below on YouTube. Top pair, you know, I think I'm going to check this one time, and then on the turn, now I'm going to bet. I'm just going to pot. I have top pair. There's a reasonable chance it's good. I have an open-ended straight draw. Reasonable chance I can get there. The 8 of diamonds is kind of the not worst card. If I was ahead, I think I'm not that likely to be ahead, but I do still have a little bit of showdown value. I do have the jack blocker to the straight, but I'm not blocking any of the diamonds, and they turn the straight. And, you know, I had 70% equity on the turn, so that's nice. And they let me realize that, and, you know, unfortunately they got there, but that's fine. And the fact that the river was a diamond is surely why they didn't bet their straight on the river. It looks like this game's getting a little bit better. Like that player across from us is maybe playing a bit too many hands. And the seat, the open seat being on my right is nice because if, you know, if some loose player wants to come in, then I'll have position on them. I marked this person in the upper left, this player 3, as green, but like, they're not that green, right? In terms of they're playing fewer than half their hands, and they're raising like approximately the correct number of hands. Like they've raised the same percentage of hands I have, right? They just have also played a whole bunch passively, which, you know, probably isn't great in and of itself, but ace, king, 8, 5, I think I can raise this, even not being suited to the ace. Not being suited to the ace, maybe I'm not going to be able to continue against a 3-bet, but we'll see. Yeah, so the player on my left, like now their stats are 33-30, which is increasingly reasonable. So I do think early on they just got a good run of cards, and you know, that's sometimes stats look different than they would otherwise, right? Like this player over here, 24/8, that seems pretty tight and a little passive. But have we seen anything really that should give us any kind of concrete read? Okay, let's think about this hand. What do I have? I have a pair of 5s. What can I make? I can make Broadway backdoor. I can make a little straight backdoor. I'm blocking like middle pair. Not much of the straight draws. I'm going to check. I think this would be an okay bet, maybe, just because there's not that much for them to have. I'm going to continue checking, and we're basically going to check all rivers. That's not a bad river. Now I have 10s and 5s with an ace. So... you know, by not bad river, I meant, you know, I'm going to win some when they check it down. But when they bet, I think I can just safely fold. Kevin E. Poker, good luck, good luck. Thank you. You too. You too. Yeah, this is the games. This is not the best PLO100 game I've found on Ignition, but it's maybe getting a little better. Hopefully, by the time you're playing, they'll pick up a bit. And, you know, there's probably a bunch of games going, so I imagine some of them are probably a little better than this one. Not that I'm complaining. I do have this vacant seat, which hopefully somebody will sit down, not you, some random person who, you know, just wants to gamble, just wants to get some money in. So, yeah. So far, I think most of the session has been pre-flop spots. Queens with a 10 and a 5, like I could raise. They've raised a fair amount of hands. You know what? Let's go ahead and put the raise in. I think I have an equity edge against a wide range, which is what they're going to call with here, pre-flop, I think. Queens do pretty nicely, right? Also, I'm going to have position, so I can check back flops or turns or rivers if I should so choose. Having the ace not be suited, I'm just going to pitch this one. But yeah, the queens are, I think they'll play pretty well in position, and that player had a wide range, I would imagine. And, you know, the best case scenario, like they just folded pre-flop, I get their dollar with no taxes, right? No rake paid. The thing about 5% rake is it's really 10% rake when you're heads up, right? Like, if I put in $10 and my opponent puts in $10, they take $1 out of the 20, so that's 5% of the 20, but it's 10% of what my opponent contributed. So they're basically taking 10% of what I win. So I'm gonna need a sizable edge to want to basically put money in. But being able to get away without any rake, that's delightful. All right, jacks, rainbow jacks, I'm not gonna play. If I think jack 10-9, something like that, maybe I can play. All right, so we've lost another player, but they weren't really a great reason for being at the table. So hopefully some people fill in these seats. Although this isn't really a bad four-way lineup. Yeah, I've got a kind of, so far, slightly aggressive player behind me, but then I have two loose somewhat passive, somewhat more just like loose, two loose players. So there's definitely a lot of people putting some money in the pot, right? And four ways, generally those types of errors are minimized, not minimized, but reduced in severity, right? These loose stats are going to get you more in a larger, like in a six-handed game than in a four-handed game. Four-handed, you should be playing a higher percentage of your hands. So if someone's not particularly positionally aware, they might be like, maybe they have an idea what a correct button range is, but then they're raising that in the low jack, right? This is a decent hand, but the difference between this hand and the queens is I'm out of position, and maybe it's a little worse than the queens. It doesn't have as much immediate equity. It doesn't have much equity on this flop. I've got a gut shot to knot the nuts. I'm going to fold, in an under pair and backdoor flush draw. Nothing really I want to be doing much with. And I'm going to fold this one too. But yeah, some people just have these are the hands I play, right? And heads up, those might be the right hands to play. Maybe it's even too few hands, heads up. Raising the button, or maybe even the cutoff, it's in the ballpark, right? It's not going to hurt them that much. But six-handed, if they're raising those in the low jack and the high jack, they're going to get in some trouble, right? And they're going to maybe play those hands against low jack raises, against high jack raises, which could be a mistake because those ranges are fairly tight. But if they're playing those hands against a button raise, it's not as big a mistake. So it's very easy for people to kind of have sort of a static strategy that's not positionally aware, and then have that strategy be good for a particular format, right? If somebody just likes to play almost all the hands, then heads up is the game that they're going to probably lose the least, unless they play really poorly post flop. The ace not being suited, I'm going to fold this. Whereas if somebody's pretty aggressive but not hyper aggressive, then a six max game maybe, or 4 to 6 is going to be pretty good. If somebody's just naturally nitty, then a full ring game, right? 9-handed, 10-handed, that's going to suit those strengths, because if they're folding too many hands from the button, folding too many hands from the big blind, those positions don't come around as often, and it's just not really going to hurt them so much. So yeah, I mean, you can have a very rote strategy, and it can be effective in one game type. It doesn't mean it's going to be effective in another game type, but you can kind of sort of get lucky in terms of matchup between style and game type. All right, so we have a new player who's just sat in the big blind. I'm going to assume that they're, a player who got dealt 4 cards. I have aces. Cool. I'm not blocking the straight. I don't have a straight draw. I have a backdoor flush draw. I can turn a set. So I'm just going to check this. A straight's already possible. Now the 8 comes. Now hands 7, 8, 9, 10 made top 2, or just anything with 7, 8. There's more 2-pair combos I'm going to run into. I have 1 flush card blocker. Again, I don't see any reason to bet this now. I basically want the ace of clubs on the turn, on the river. I would like to go back and get a new turn, which would be the ace of clubs. But I would take the ace of diamonds on the turn. And now here, when they bet 2/3 pot roughly, I'm just going to fold, right? My aces they don't play well on this board, out of position. If I think about what river cards I want, it's like the ace of clubs, right? Or a 4. A 4 would be okay-ish. If I had the ace of diamonds in my hand, this would have been a very different scenario, right? Where I still would have checked the flop, but then I would have turned the nut flush draw. And I don't know whether I would have bet or called, but I certainly wouldn't have folded right away, and I would have binked the nuts. So that would have been nice, but we can't have everything. All right, king 7, 6, 4. Not really a hand I'm looking to get involved with. If it folded to the small blind and they raised, I think I'd probably defend this against small blind open. But aside from that, just going to pitch it. This player on our left, whose stats have continued to become more and more reasonable looking, has now raised. So I pretty much just think that they are a player trying to play well, who was running hot earlier, cold later, and now they picked up something they want to play. Player on the right did not reload after that hand. Actually, we might have some data. Was there a showdown? I don't think there was. I think the river goes bet folds, right? So they folded that river, which brought the diamond. So it's hard to learn too much about about them, right? I mean, they did check call turn. I mean, I can't really judge too much about that without knowing what their cards were. They clearly didn't have a flush draw that they believed in, but maybe they had some kind of 2-pair hand, or like a weak set and there was a straight on board, like bottomish set. All right, so here's one of those spots where like I'm getting 11 to 1, right? And I have players I want to play against, but I'm just not going to make a lot of good hands. Um, I'm basically hoping to like flop a random boat. Like if these cards were increased in rank by 1, I would have 699, and that would be cool. Maybe flop a random straight. My draws aren't going to have a ton of equity. I mean, I could flop some wraps, but I think out of position I can just fold this. Overlimping the small blind, for 50 cents. I wouldn't really fault anyone for doing either. I don't think that would be very bad by any stretch, but I think just like those pots, it's hard to win a big limped pot, and not having a bunch of nutty components makes it even harder basically. So even with those pot odds, having to beat 5 players, I think I'm comfortable folding a lot of hands there. Okay, so this player bets almost pot. Like, I guess they're saying they have a boat. I don't know. It's a little odd hand there. They were the big blind, so they could have hands like 8-4, 5-4, certainly like 4-4, 8-5. They could have flopped quads and just been like, well, how am I going to get any money from this? And just been checking. And then the river bet size is a little curious. That's kind of what makes me raise an eyebrow. But I guess, it makes some sense. Where it's just like the pot size is kind of not that relevant. It's just like, hey, do you want to play or do you not want to play? So the 2 players who, one of them sat out and the other one left. So that's not great. It's a nice sign that the player on the right is not reloading. I don't think I've noticed if they overlimped one and some other things. Okay, so this person posts, which is always nice. They've got a dead 50 cents. I've got 2 pair. So, I'm happy to take a flop here. I don't think this is a hand I really want to be raising with. I'm blocking the bottom straight, and I have 5s and I have 2s, and the only things I can make are runner draws, or turn a set, basically. Runner quads. That's not enough to continue. If I had pocket 8s, maybe this is a decent bluffing hand, because then I'd be double blocking all the straights. Double blocking the bottom straight is not super exciting. Because then when they are interested, they're more likely to actually even have the nuts. All right, so, aces, we're just going to 3-bet. The player on the right is that newer player. They've been calling a lot of hands, but again, I don't think... Oh, they did open limp last hand, right? That was the small blind, and there was a poster, so I'm not going to really count that too much. Let's see. I don't think I have a lot of really in-depth hands to review, so I'm going to play another couple orbits, probably 1 or 2 orbits. Aces are nice. Having the king is good because I'm blocking top set. Set of queens is still very possible. Top 2, also possible. I don't think this is a flop I really want to bet. Just in general, like range versus range. I might have a decent amount of king in my 3-bet range, though, here. Small blind versus button. So I don't hate it as much. The queen pairing is one of the worst cards in the deck. It does make queen less likely, but now they can have all sorts of random stuff that just has the queen. They don't want to bet. Can I get value here on the river? I'm blocking king queen. I'm blocking king. I'm blocking what I want to get called by. I don't really see a lot of things that I can get called by. I was thinking of making like a blocking bet, but what would I bet? I mean, I could bet like really small, I guess, and then that feels like it's just like soliciting a raise. So this person's not reloading. They have been very passive. I am now feeling like they're probably a player I want to play with. Let's check out what they had. They had ace 10-10-8 with hearts, which seems like they played it pretty reasonably. They picked up a nut flush draw on the river going to the ocean. If I bet, I don't think I'm getting called really in any spot. On the flop or the turn, I can deny equity, where a 10 or a jack would have been good for them. I'm going to raise this one. Queens with a suited ace is nice. That's a good 3-betting hand a lot of the time. And in this spot, we're just gonna put in the raise. This is not a limper, right? This person posted. So yeah, I still don't have a strong read on the player on my right. Like, they've played a large percentage of their hands, but the only ones we've seen have been kind of reasonable, I think, from what I've actually seen, right? So, okay, we have a limp here. Would I open this in the low jack? I think not. So I'm gonna fold, but then this one I'll mark. We'll mark this hand right now, pre-flop. With the suited ace, I would raise it. The king-queen is a nice combo to have those together, and if the 8 were a 9 or a 10, I would raise it. But I think the 8 is just too useless, and having a 3-card hand against 2 limpers, so, where I'm likely to get a multi-way pot, it seems like maybe I was likely to get raised there, limp re-raised. That's a little... All right, yeah, so there a lot of people playing these aces pretty passively, and quads will take it down. Quads is pretty good. That would have been so gross. Wow, if we got to the turn there, set over set, and then they I would have hit my 2-outer, and then they would have hit their 1-outer. But although, was it even a 1-outer? Did they have a straight flush draw? They did not have a straight flush draw. No, it was a queen of hearts. That would have been pretty sick though. But yeah, I mean, that could be the same person, right? Like I'm gonna make a note. 30 big blind short stacker. Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's this 30 big blind short stacker who's, often playing their aces passively to back raise, right? Which I'm not hating on it. It's annoying, but it's something to just be aware of, right? That maybe there's this particular person who plays in these games who's doing that, and that's just something to be aware of. Kevin, if you're still watching, watch out for that. I know I saw yesterday. I think there was some shorty who kept doubling up and quitting and doubling up and quitting. And, you were positing that it was the same person. Like, we don't know, right? But it seems likely. Jacks and 8s, I think raising would be okay. Double suited, I think I would do it. Single suited, I'm a little less thrilled with it. I have open-ended straight draw. The queen would not be to the nuts. The 7 would be to the nuts unless it's a club, in which case it would not be the nuts. So I really only have 3 outs of the nuts. I am super blocking any straights that come in, though, so that's nice. So I think this could be sort of a bluffy hand. So I do have blockers to those sorts of things. And if this were a player that I thought, like, blocker bluffs were going to be super effective against, I would probably want to peel this. But I don't, because, first of all, I don't have that great of odds to improve. And second of all, I don't know. I don't think my blocker bluffs are going to work as well against a player like this who wanted to pot the flop. Basically, I've tried it, and against that sort of player, I think it mostly is effective when they don't show that much interest in the pot, right? And I'm gonna fold this one. I've gotten myself into trouble doing that. There's particular types of players that I think it can be very effective against, and I'm not convinced this is one of them. So, yeah, I mean, it's a limped pot, right? There's $2.85 in the middle after the rake has been taken. So I don't need to... Oh, I think, you know what? We'll sit out. We'll sit out the next thing, and then we'll do the session review thing. But yeah, like, I think a lot of... Wow. That's a flop. That's, it's like too much. Too much. Flopping the nuts and blocking the second nuts. You like don't want the extra 9 there, unless another. Yeah, you just don't want the extra 9. Like, what did they have? Did they have the last queen and the last 9? Probably just a straight queen. Who knows? Maybe some wrap with a queen, wrap with a 9. I'm going to raise this hand, whether there are 1 or 2 limpers. It's pretty solid. And I think I can call a 3-bet with this because it's like a middle gapped rundown. I've been finding that it seems like the solver likes the middle gap more than it likes the bottom gap. And I'm going to have to do some thinking in terms of like what straight draws can we get with those. All right, so I do get 3-bet by a player who is not 3-bet a lot, right? So I want to be cautious, but I do think there's a lot of flops that I can really smash. I have a king high clubs, and I have, 4 cards to a 5-card straight. I flop a nice wrap. I flop middle pair, and the question is like, do I want to get it in here? If they have nut diamonds, okay, let me think about outs for a second. All right, the SPR is like 3-1, so I'm going to need like 40-something% equity. Hit the time bank. Okay, so an 8, a 9, and an ace all give me nuts, right? Unless it's a diamond. So 3, 3, 3, 9 outs. 9 outs seems pretty good. And then a king and a queen are going to give me something, and a 10 might be good as well. With the flush draw on board, I'm not really sure. I am blocking flush draw outs. Against aces, I have to be doing quite well, unless they have... Well, I'm not folding. All right, let's just do this. I'm not sure. They snap call. They do have the flush draw, and we are going to buy more chips rapidly, and we are going to check that out after the session. We'll hit review. And let's look at what was my equity on the flop. Yeah, so I'm at 45% on the flop. I think just getting it in there makes some sense. Given that they had the hand that I was most concerned of, aces with the nut flush draw, and I still had enough equity given, the SPR, the pot odds, basically, I'm fairly happy with it. And then they might do something like... they could maybe sometimes bet fold, but if they don't have aces with a nut flush draw, I'm in very good shape. The fact that I have the 10 helps, right? Because then I can hit the 10, and that's trips. Now it's going to be good, and the fact that I had the 9 of diamonds and not a different 9, right? A different 9 would have been 1 fewer out. Let's see. Kevin E. Poker says, I just tuned in again, busy morning. You are referring to the shorties that double up, snap, quit, and then rejoin. Yes. I am referring to the shorties that double up, snap, quit, and then rejoin. Which is, it's like a flaw in the system, basically, right? They let you, because it's anonymous, they don't make you rebuy. I guess that's why, right? They don't make you rebuy for the same amount that you just cashed out for. Which, honestly, I don't particularly have a problem with. I think the whole... the whole thing about like how many chips you should or shouldn't have at the table is kind of like a big load. I do think that they should just make the minimum higher, right? Instead of having a 30 big blind minimum, have like a 50 big blind minimum or something. And then you should like just always be able to draw down to that, not when you're in a hand. But I think that would, and then you could also have deep tables that would have a higher max and a lower min, like 100 min and like 250 max. You need more traffic to be able to have more options like those, but and even having just like short stack tables. I think the main problem is having the range of buy-ins that are offered, and there is a problem with big bet games just in terms of like the whole stack size situation. I think that's a flaw in the game. So I don't think there are necessarily specific rules that are sensible that really get rid of that. I think that's just a problem with the game, right? And I don't know. That's somewhat of a hot take. Like it's I definitely do not share the poker, the like common wisdom in terms of how I think about stack sizes and increasing and decreasing and whatever. I mean, obviously, if the rules are what the rules are, then you play by the rules, right? But I'm not talking about being in the casino and like taking money off surreptitiously. Certainly not during a hand. During a hand is ridiculous. I mean, I think like arguably you shouldn't even be able to like you know, tip the waitress like during the hands. Like it's, you know, you can be like, oh, I've got 300 left, and then they bet I'm gonna tip, you know, the waiter like 200, and then it's like, oh no, I only have 100, and it's like there's definitely some things there, but I will fold and we will proceed to the session review. Let's start with this very fun hand where I raise King Queen 10-9 on the button, but after somebody has called, and as such, when I get 3-bet, the, you know, resulting SPR is going to be like around 3-1 if I call this, right? 3.3-1. So let's take a look at just the basic, like, should I raise this in the cutoff, which is what I would use against a hijack, you know, against one limper when I'm on the button. So we'll say King Queen single suited, King Queen 10-9. Yeah, this is a raise and call, right? So even if I'm not suited to the king, but I am suited to the king, I think I didn't quite totally enumerate everything here. So let's break it down. All right, I'm facing a pot-sized bet, but before that, let's just look at this flop. What's the SPR? It's 3.3-1, right? So that means we're going to be able to get it in if we have around 40, like around 44, 45% equity, I think, right? And we'll be able to get it in profitably, or at least break evenably, right? So I now want to like look at this and think, okay, what do I have? I have a pair of 10s so far. That's probably not good, but you know, if they 3-bet me with hand like ace, king, queen, something, right, that's not a jack or a 10, then I'm actually ahead, right? So I can be ahead, non-zero chance I'm ahead. What can I make? I can make Broadway, right? So an ace, a 9, or an 8 that are not diamonds give me the nuts right now. Running clubs that are not a 10 or a 3 give me the nuts. So I've got immediate straight draw, 9 outs to the nuts. I've got backdoor flush draw to the nuts, or not the nuts, second nuts, you know, potentially could be a nuts if the ace comes, but then forget that. But so basically I've got a backdoor flush draw. I can make trips. 2-pair isn't really a thing because that would give me a straight. If I do turn a straight and they turn a bigger straight, if I hit like a king or a queen, then I can hit a king or a queen on the river and make a boat that's likely to be good. So I've got a lot of equity here. And then the question is, what am I blocking? I'm blocking middle set. I'm blocking a lot of the rundowns, and I'm blocking the flush and flush draws, right? So when they bet full pot, if I call, I'm often going to have kind of an annoying spot on the turn, I think, where there will be 90 in the middle, and I will have 70 left. So I'll only need around 30% then. But, you know, maybe I can call and then get away on the turn when it's a diamond. But if it's a brick, then I want to see what my equity is here on a brick against like what my opponent actually had, right? So, you know, the board runs out brick, and they win. But let's take a look at the equity calculator. As we saw already, I had 45% on the flop, and I'll just pop actual calculator open, right? And we'll just verify. There was like 3.3. So 3.3 divided by 7.6 equals, I need 43.4% equity. And I had 45. And, you know, after rake and whatever, it's probably roughly a break-even jam against this exact combo. So we're going to do some things to take a look at how different combos I could be up against would play out. So on the turn, I would have had 35% equity. And if I had just called the flop and then they jammed the turn, with this hand against that hand, I should actually call again, right? Whereas if a diamonds came off, I think I could fold and get away from my hand and shouldn't feel too bad about it. Yes, that would give them the option of bluffing with aces that don't have the nut flush, but that's going to be kind of a scary bluff to launch for them, and I'm not confident that people are usually going to do that. So I kind of like calling flop and then, you know, calling turn on a brick like this, obviously calling turn if I get there, and like if I were to look at the equity distributions on different turn cards, if I'm very bad on some of the turn cards, then just calling flop makes more sense. So I actually think just calling makes sense. I didn't quite have enough time at the table during the hand for me to fully process everything, right? Partially because I was trying to articulate my thoughts, and partially just because I haven't done the work enough on enough flops. So as we see, I have 35% equity on this turn card, but on the flop, I had 44, almost 45%. So that exceeds the amount that I needed to be able to get it in fine here. However, if we like make the 4 of spades some relevant card, like say the king of spades, right? This is going to be much worse. My equity is going to plummet to like maybe 39-ish, maybe even less. 35, right? So now all of a sudden this jam doesn't look so good. However, what if like instead of the ace of spades, what if we give them not the ace of spades, let's give them like a queen of hearts. So now they have a wrap, but I have that pair, and now all of a sudden I'm like 50-50, right? So even if we do give them the ace, let's say instead of the king, what do we give them, like a jack? Now I'm back to 44%, right? Even if they have top pair, because that doesn't really affect me. Having my 10 is still going to be good against their jack and their aces. The jack doesn't help them that much. So, you know, if, let's see, how do I want to do this? I'm going to try to select single range selector, and I'm going to say, let's see, against ace high, basically, we'll just check this, and against aces, I think I'm a favorite, right? So I'm a favorite against all aces. So if they're just jamming all aces, which I wouldn't assume they're doing, but if they were, I would be a favorite. So it's possible that I could actually get it in very good, or that they would maybe fold some hands. Now let's go like top 5% or something, right? And that's like just if they bet everything. Now I'm a huge favorite. So there are ranges I can construct where I'm doing great. This was not the literal worst hand, but it was kind of the nightmare situation where they do have the overpair and they have the nut flush draw, and their overpair also blocks some of my outs, right? I mean, the ace of spades would have been one of my nut outs, but they have it. I now want to see whether I can. Oh, okay. I want the aces and suited. But not any suited. Can I? Oh, flush draw potential. Any suit. This is diamonds, right? And that. 27%. Oh, I need these ands. Can I not do this and? Okay, I don't know. I don't know how to do it. But anyway, the point, you get it. I think the flop was not a big mistake in terms of I had the equity to make this play, but I think perhaps calling is a better play. And then if the turn is like the 5 of diamonds, I probably just fold, right? And sometimes my opponent bluffs me off my equity, but probably not often enough. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious, right? And that's the sort of thing. I think there's some thing called poker juice that lets you kind of run scenarios like this. And I would be very curious to see how I'm supposed to play in a scenario like that with a hand like this. Okay, we'll proceed. All right, king 8, queen, queen. Most of the rest of these are just like pre-flop. I fold this hand. Let's see. Do I open this in the low jack? Because that's the range that I'm going to use here. In the cutoff, I'm confident that I'm going to open this hand. Queens with a king 8. Yeah, with the king suited, I actually do raise this in the low jack. So and king 7. So king, queen, queen, 8, single suited. Good suit is RFI in low jack. Bad suit is fold. King, queen, queen, 7. Good suit is also RFI and low jack. So this was arguably too tight. I do think that it's not the hand that's going to play the best multi-way, but, you know, you can probably raise it. That's probably fine. All right, this hand I thought was actually kind of interesting. I 3-bet. First, let's verify that, where I'm 3-betting small blind, squeezing against a high jack. Now, I only have charts for cutoff and low jack. So we'll look at both of those. First, let's look at the more pessimistic one. It's going to be small blind, squeeze versus under the gun or low jack. Queen jack double suited. Queen jack 9-8 is bad suit actually is a fold. So we'll do this. We'll say queen jack 9-8 double suited in small blind versus low jack squeeze spot. Good suit equals 3-bet call. Bad suit equals fold. Okay, so if they were raising from this position, then this actually is a fold. But let's now go back and look at, but it's barely a fold. The hands next to it are 3-bets, so I don't think it could be that bad. Against the cutoff, now it's a 3-bet. So Queen Jack 9-8 double suited in small blind versus cutoff squeeze spot is all 3-bet call, right? So if I were to interpolate those, I'd say like this hand is probably fine. It's certainly close. Oh wait, I think I actually might have, did I miss? Let me look at the other one. Yeah, no, that's right. So I'll look at this hand in the small blind versus MP just solo. It's a very clear 3-bet, and I think against the low jack, let's look at small blind versus low jack, Queen Jack double suited. Yeah, so it's also 3-bet versus 3-bet call versus low jack RFI, no cold calls. Okay, so I think this is fine, right, as a 3-bet. And then this person calls the 3-bet, and this person comes over the top, right? So I've got to think the button, if I knew this player a little bit more, and I feel like now I do, even though they're anonymous, I have more of a sense that people are doing this sort of thing. I actually haven't noticed it a lot, right? I haven't seen it happen that much. Part of that's maybe because I haven't been 3-betting a ton in spots like these. But, you know, if they don't have aces, then I can potentially get this person to fold, which is what I end up doing, and really having some very nice equity. You know, basically having this overlay and not having the best hands. But I think my equity, I don't know, if they have a hand like kings, let's check out a few scenarios, right? So here's how this runs out. Not great for me. Again, aces with diamonds beat me here. But let's take a look at pre-flop, right? We don't really care about the flop. Pre-flop, we're going to look at our equity versus this hand. I think it's going to be a little less than 50%. Okay, so it's only 42%. So I'm going to slide this to the side for a moment. And if we go back to the flop, and then we're just going to here, right? If I think about how much am I putting in to get, you know, there's already 37 in the pot, or 36, and I only need to put in another 30. So I'm only putting in like 30% of the pot, not even, right? So if I can do this and get that player to fold, I only need 30% equity to justify that. I've got almost 42, and they've got a hand that's very strong against my hand. So if I unselect this and I just go like random aces, let's go single range selector. Let's say, no, not any pairs. We'll go aces, and we just create that, and we run that. Yeah, so now I'm getting closer to 50%, 43%, right? So I'm a dog, but because I'd already put the 3-bet in, it's very easy, especially with at this depth, right, to go ahead and just be like, yeah, let's go. Now, if I add another player and I give the other player kings, right, which, I mean, that's not like saying that they have kings. That's basically hypothesizing what's it going to look like if I have kings in my spot, or if they have kings rather. Like how's that going to affect the equity situation here, right? So let's take a look. How's the equity go? All right, so my equity has gone down. I've gone to more like 34%. That's it's still climbing. All right, we'll let it climb for a minute. How many combos are there? There's going to be a lot of runouts, right? Yeah, I wonder if it's doing these systematically or if it's like Monte Carlo. I should learn more about this tool. But it feels like it's staying in a similar place. So it's around, 34.5. So I've got about a third of the pot. Against the kings, though, that would be the rest of the chips. So 34%. there'd be another 30 in the pot if that player called too, right? So if we do a little bit of math, I already said what I need less than 30% for the other one. I had 40%. So here, what would I need? There would be about 100 something in the middle. I would need 30 divided by like 137, I think. That's not including the rake, but then I'd only need about 22%. I've still got about 10% more equity, a little bit better than I need. So to me, it feels like it doesn't matter that much. Like, I don't gain that much by getting the kings to fold because I don't lose that much from the kings calling. If I multiple range selector that, this thing's probably just going to crash. So I won't dig too deep into it, but I think the difference between jamming here and calling probably isn't that big, especially when they don't have that much left behind. I don't really want to get it in against them though, beyond that though, because I don't know. I don't think I'm winning on that proposition. So I think just being like, yeah, you can just fold now. And they did. And then we lost. Cool. Okay, moving on. So this, let's take a look. I raised and I got 3-bet and then I folded, but let's look. I am the cutoff and I have single suited 10s and there is a king 4. So this is just a little too loose. King 5 I'm supposed to raise in this spot. But then I have the extra diamond, so that makes it even a little more or less good, right? King 10 4 single suited is fold in cutoff. Good suit or bad suit. King 10 10 5 good suit is RFI fold in cutoff. Okay, so what this tells me, and King 6, King 7 also are raise fold against the in position player. So what I've learned in this hand is I raised a little too tight, but my fold against the 3-bet was correct. So I'm actually even going to say that. RFI was loose. Was a little loose. Fold versus IP 3-bet, correct. Right, so I got 1 out of 2. I should have folded the first time I had the option. I folded the second time. Okay, and then here there's a raise. It's to me. I'm not really that curious. What do I do? Button versus MP. Single suited 9s, right? We're going to look at single suited 9s. And I know I'm not single suited. 9-9, Jack 10, single suited is a call. As are some hands near it, right? So Jack 10, 9-9, single suited is call. Button versus MP. As are Jack 8, Queen 10, Queen Jack, etc. 10-7. So what that's saying is like similar hands, right? This isn't the bottom of the single suited range. But wait, you're rainbow, you say. Okay, yeah, let's look at that. Rainbow, I fold, right? So Jack 10, 9-9 rainbow is fold. Button versus MP. Only 9-9 rainbow. We play button versus hijack. RFI is 8-8 through 6-6, right? So we need 2 pair, and we need 2 pair that connects to cold call this hand. And this is not 2 pair. It does connect. So single suited, that was sort of what I was thinking. Like, do I call this single suited? Yes. Yes, I do. But this hand, no, I fold. Okay. All right, a little bit more. Folds to, no. Okay, so do I defend this hand? I think rainbow, we're not going to do a lot of 3-betting. So this is versus the button, big blind versus button. We're going to look ace king 10-3 is a call, single suited, but is a fold rainbow. Okay, so ace king 10-3 rainbow is fold, big blind versus button RFI. Single suited is call, good suit or bad suit. And I'll just go back and double check that. That single suited, yeah. So we're calling a lot of ace king XX single suited. Okay. In this spot, right? So, but this, because I'm rainbow, I just let it go. No chasing rainbows. All right. I raise this hand. Let's double check that. I am the button. King, queen, single suited. King, queen, 6-4, a little too loose. 6-5, 5-4, those are raises, right? So king, queen, 6-4, single suited is fold on button. 5-4 or 6-5, good suit are RFI call. Okay, and even 7-5. Yeah, and when I get 3-bet, this is close to 5-4 and 7-6, but and 6-5, but 7-5 is a fold, so I think this is a fold. Let's see, 7-5, good suit is RFI fold. So RFI a little too loose. Fold versus 3-bet, correct. Okay, so again, that's like those the tens, right? Similar scenario. Ace 7-7 deuce. I think this is just a little too loose. We're gonna look in MP and see what it be. All right, sevens, single suited. Yeah, okay. So ace 7-7 deuce, single suited is fold in hijack. Ace 4 suited plus is RFI call, good suit. Ace 8 plus is RFI fold, bad suit. All right, so that pretty much sums it up. In this spot, I like the ace suited to the pair of sevens. That's good. If you give me something besides a 2, a 3, or a third 7, I'm going to raise it, and I'm going to call a 3-bet. Except apparently ace, queen, and ace, jack, we're going to fold to a 3-bet out of position, but we're going to call it in position. But that's too detailed, perhaps. So here, yeah, I'm happy with this. This is a good fold, and I folded because I had the deuce. And the deuces are just like not very good cards. Last hand of the session, there is a raise, and am I going to defend this against a hijack RFI? I think the answer is no. But I do want to test the assertion that hands like this are ones that I'm going to play more heads up than I'm going to play them if there were a cold caller. So we'll look at King 10 single suited. King 10 7-4 is a fold, right? King 10 7-4 single suited is fold. Hijack versus big blind versus hijack RFI. Good suit or bad suit. King 10 6-4 single suited is call. Heads up, big blind versus hijack RFI. Okay, so this is close to a hand we would play. So now I want to go and look at, in a squeeze spot, how would I play that, like King 10 6-4, right? I think I would fold it. So I would fold it, but let's see whether that's correct. We've only got verse under the gun and verse cutoff, so that's unfortunate, but we can go King 10, and yeah, it's not even close, right? I'll pull this up just to show it. As we see here, this is what we do against with King 10 double suited against the low jack in a squeeze spot, and now we'll go back and we'll just look button versus, we'll look to the low jack at the dawn on the first day, I don't know. And you can see that there are more hands, right? There's more hands that we call. Not a ton, but in this category, it's a little bit more. So we just get to play a bit more hands in that spot. And yeah, so nice hand. Overall, I feel like this session, there were a couple slightly too loose opens that, you know, I gave ace a double up a couple times. The time that I had the rundown, the double suited rundown, I think that was close. I think the 3-bet was fine. I think I'm gonna call it off. Whether to jam or whether to just call, I don't know. And then similarly, when I had the rundown on the flush board, I jammed flop. And somewhere in my head, I was thinking, with the flush draw, I don't really like jamming. But then I counted up all my outs. I thought about my equity. And I thought, this can't be that bad. And I think it falls under the category of can't be that bad. But I think a call is better, right? I think a call is better. And it's going to put some of their hands in a little bit of an uncomfortable spot on the turn. Like, they're going to feel uncomfortable too. And if it's a diamond, then maybe I just get away from my hand sometimes when I'm drawing dead, right? So I think, yeah, I think some learning has happened today. All right, so if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching. If you're on Twitch, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Cheers.